This is Bannockburn, site of the 1314 battle where Robert the Bruce claimed victory over King Edward II of England, and today, the final destination of All Under One Banner's annual march in the name of Scottish independence.
Now, the first song, I'll better tell you a story about it. It's about an English knight that fought here 710 years ago, and his name was John D. Sully. Sharp sticks and pots and pans drove the English from our lands. At Bannockburn he had to flee, so he didn't bother putting it on his CV.
This hat has got the badges on from way back. This hat has been on there since 2014.
In 2012, Alex Salmond, former leader of the SNP, signed the Edinburgh Agreement with the Prime Minister David Cameron, paving the way for an agreed referendum process which would take place before the end of 2014. It was a fierce showdown between both yes and no campaigns, with a record 85% voter turnout on Thursday the 18th of September, splitting Glasgow, Edinburgh and the counties between. Eventually, a Remain majority would emerge, 55 to 45%.
What went wrong in 2014? Do you really want to go into that? I think it was definitely, how could you call it? Gerrymandered, put it that way. I'm from Dundee, right? We voted the highest yes movement in the whole of Scotland. They had the referendum in the disc, right? Alarms went off 3 times, had to evacuate the building. So does that not tell you everything what's happening in 2014? They cannot afford to lose us, right? Because we were their cash cow. That's why they try to put people in jail, you know, like journalists and people like that.
It's a police state. We're living in a police state. It's a police state.
Well, I was raging at the time about, being told to stay at home. And I did a lot of research and ended up writing a book called Questioning Lockdown. That's my wee business card. I have actually narrated it as well. So if you go to my website, questioninglockdown.com, and go to the Listen tab, you can listen to me narrating the whole book for free.
Germ theory is just that, a theory, and that there is no scientific evidence proving viruses exist.
I published it, self-published it on Amazon on the 5th of December 2020, and then in January 2021 it was banned by Amazon. And it was taken off. I was caged in the back of a police van, put in a cell for 6 hours, DNA taken, fingerprints, and when I left the police station I was charged with culpable and reckless conduct, maximum sentence, which is life imprisonment.
Are you working on any other books at the moment?
I'm not. I started one called the Scottish Stasi, about the secret policing, but I don't feel the motivation to be doing that right now. At protests throughout Britain, they have a lot of police informers pretending to be activists. You see, they've added anti-vaccination to the counter-terrorism. They're still testing people in hospitals. They're still giving people. Some people have had 6 injections if they're over a certain age.
How many injections have you had?
None. I would because there was no need for any emergency use drugs, and people were not told. They were not given informed consent because, especially for children, the trial, Pfizer's trial, is not up till July 2024. So it's an experimental drug.
It just started off as a hobby, and then people started asking me to make things for them, so I started making them, and it just kind of grew from there. I then started making bags, and I made a couple of these for myself, and people were asking about them as well, so then I started making them, and I made a sporran for myself just for something to do one day, and it turned out really good, so I made some sporrans as well, and people have been asking me about that as well, so it's just stuff that's sort of come into my head.
How long have you been supporting the Scottish independence movement?
For quite a long time, but with Carrie Orme Nicola and her husband, I don't know what's going on now. It's It's just takes the guts out you, and we still don't know what's happening.
What do you hope happens?
Well, yeah, get independence, yeah.
How do you think we get it?
Well, be voting for it. We just need to get everybody to vote properly and listen to all the lies that we've been told. You know, I mean, what have the governments done that's been in? Especially the Tories.
Shouting "fuck the Tories" through Pig Bag is it wasn't me that started that. People started that at concerts, football matches, everywhere. So I just kind of recorded it together, put it on YouTube, and then I do it at rallies and things like that.
Red ones, blue ones, and the dirty amber streak up the middle. Fuck them all!
By signing up to Liberation.Scot, you're saying no to colonialism.
Liberation.Scot, that's the future.
By signing up to Liberation.Scot, you're saying no to free ports. Because if your home is in a free port, it's under compulsory purchase order. It is that serious. This is what's coming. Rishi Sunak's going to hand over the baton of colonialism, and he's going to put the next generation into serfdom if we do not take our liberation. So get yourself onto Liberation.Scot and get signed up. That's the most important thing. The Scottish Constitution is our Robert the Bruce. That's what we need to learn about. That's what we need to get behind. And that's what we need to sign up to, Liberation.Scot.
No more shite, use the claim of right. Right.
What is the claim of right?
Well, the claim of right is the sovereign people are sovereign.
Sovereignty is a little bit different from the other pro-independence parties in as much as we believe that Scotland should have full control over its laws. We would not support rejoining the European Union because that would mean surrendering the primacy of Scottish law to a foreign court.
In 2015, David Cameron won the first Conservative majority since 1996. He would soon confirm the EU referendum in line with his 2013 promise during the Nick Clegg coalition. Lo and behold, Britain would leave the European Union 52 to 48%, and so too would Scotland, despite a majority stance against Brexit. But in order to even think about rejoining, there first needs to be a way out of the United Kingdom.
Following the referendum, we face a time of great national change. Brexit means Brexit. And I know, because we're Great Britain, that we will rise to the challenge. Brexit means Brexit. I'm very clear Brexit does mean Brexit. And we're going to make a success of it. The United Kingdom is leaving the European Union.
What route do you see?
UTI.
I've heard many commentators recently say that there's no clear path for Scotland to take its independence. Not entirely true.
Unilateral Declaration of Independence, aka a UDI, is the process wherein a new state declares itself independent and sovereign without any formal agreement from the state which it is seceding. The enactment of this process can be seen throughout history with varying consequences across a range of nations. Firstly by America in 1976, leading to a War of Independence, and most recently by Rhodesia in 1965, eventually gaining recognition as Zimbabwe in 1980.
Look, there isn't another route open to us. As I said in the speech just there is no route to independence now that runs through the streets of Westminster. They have made that abundantly clear to us. There will never be a situation that I could anticipate where Labour and Conservatives would allow a second referendum on independence. Just put away your IndieRef2 hashtags, put away your IndieRef2 banners. Unfortunately, it is time for Scots to take matters into our own hands.
We're on the verge of the Third World War, and I see no statesmen of the calibre of John F. Kennedy or Tony Benn or people that I grew up with as a child who had a measure of what was going on and had the people's best interests at heart. So the world is in a state of crisis. Scotland is in a state of crisis, the UK is in a state of crisis, so now the party politics has really kind of broken. We must have individual voices speaking up.
Do you have any words of wisdom for people voting on the 4th of July?
Vote with your heart. You know, vote with your heart, and if you do the same, you will get the same, and the same's not good enough anymore.
What does it mean to be running as an independent for independence?
Well, I'm an independent candidate in the first instance because people are scunnered with party politics. And because I have been a lifelong supporter of Scottish independence, I'm happy to say that in essence I'm the Yes campaign reborn, as is Sally Hughes and David Henry from Edinburgh.
Why should people vote Eva Comrie?
Well, the constituency is Alloa and Grangemouth, and that's the biggest part of Clackmannanshire is in there, as well as obviously Grangemouth, Larbert, Carnshore, Stirnessmuir, Skinflats, Airth and other areas. I live and work in Clackmannanshire. I've lived and worked in central Scotland all of my life. My family were all born and brought up in central Scotland. I've been a lawyer working in Stirling, Clackmannanshire and Falkirk for the last 40 years, and I've seen firsthand the vulnerabilities of our people and the challenges they face. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that those vulnerabilities and challenges will only be overcome when we have the full economic resources of Scotland available to us for our own use and for the benefit of the people of Scotland.
I often think that England will become independent before Scotland will.
How would that happen?
Because they get so sick of Westminster and their politicians and the whole theatre of Westminster, the whole thing is just a sham, and all the countries, including England, the movement for an English country on its own rises, and the same sort of situation as it would rise in Ireland, Wales and Scotland. We don't know how old this armour is, but it's chainmail. It's antique chainmail. It could be a theatrical prop from Victorian times. It's very heavy, and people love to wear it here at Bannockburn and hold this sword, which is very similar to the sort of sword that Bruce or Wallace would have held.
Standing clad in chainmail armour, I felt like the main man at Bannockburn. But of course I wasn't. That was Tony Cox, head compere from All Under One banner.
I'm old enough to remember the 79, referendum. And I was 15 years old at the time.
The future generation.
In 1979, Scotland held a first referendum to determine whether there was sufficient support for a Scottish Assembly. Despite the result favouring devolution, the country would remain in Margaret Thatcher's United Kingdom, as this turnout represented only 32.9% of the registered electorate, when a minimum 40% majority was required.
Scotland's always been a colony, but we're a colony of a particular type. The use of the iron fist of imperialism and the velvet glove of imperialism was what we saw in Scotland, the attempt to try and work through collaborators, what are sometimes known as a comprador class. Basically, we were betrayed by our own elites, and that the Great British Project was a project of the Anglo-Scottish elites, and we should never ever forgive it. The other thing that we should never forget is the abiding support for independence amongst the small folk of Scotland. So it's a class issue. You know, the middle classes can afford to wait for independence. But the sort of people that I was brought up with and the sort of streets that I was brought up in, they cannot wait. You look at any city centre, any town, even villages in Scotland, and you see the deterioration that we've experienced over the last 10 years. That's an accelerating deterioration, and again, it should not be allowed to stand. And it is a national shame that our political parties have not basically got up on their hind legs about this issue. You've got the Tweedledum and Tweedledee. The choice there is no choice whatsoever. It's a choice between a rock and a hard place. But at the same time, there's a lot of criticism of the SNP, and quite rightly so. Nobody should be exempt from criticism within the independence movement, and it should be the sign of a mature democracy and a mature independence movement that we are able to criticise one another. This idea, wished for Indy and never ever criticise. If we do not criticise, if we basically say, well, everything in the garden is rosy, then we actually lull ourselves into a false sense of security and we create a false reality.
What do you think is the top priority for the people of Scotland right now?
Independence. Has to be. Well, I do live streaming mainly. but we have separate mics, clip-on mics, which are Bluetooth, which connect into the camera.
What's your live stream called?
We do it for different groups, for independence, anything to do with independence. So when we have a speaker, we will live stream it onto Facebook. We can't rely on politicians. We have to do it ourselves. It has to be people power. People like Sarah Sawyers and Salvo are amazing.
The people of Scotland are sovereign. Can I hear it back? The people of Scotland are sovereign.
What does it mean to be non-political?
Well, I am not non-political because everything is politics. Nothing that happens in our lives in terms of what the government does or our councils do is non-political. But what we are is non-party political. And what that means is that we focus on issues, principles, rights that are common to everybody, and they have nothing to do with what party you belong to. We were annexed to the English crown, and like every other colony, we have suffered genocide. We have suffered actual genocide right after Culloden. We've had deliberate famines. We have suffered cultural genocide, political and social genocide, everything that makes us distinctly Scottish.
Now, apparently there's about 700,000 people learning Gaelic on Duolingo. If we can get it up to 1.5 million, the Gaelic will start to regenerate all on its own. So it'll take wings and it'll start to regenerate. Just go and download Duolingo and do Gaelic and do it once a day. It takes you about 20 minutes at maximum.
The things that are possible for an independent Scotland based on its own constitution are unbelievably brilliant. That's what independence means to me.
Attempts try to shoot us. Labour does need to injure us. BBC curbs our enjoyments. Government makes unemployment. Oh, never mind, the day is near where independence will be here. There's a glass through walnuts here. Scotland to be.
I'm staying here until I get independence. I'm 80 years old, right? And I'm staying here until I get independence. I'm not going to be going up there, because I'm not allowed to go up there until I get independence, because I would get kicked back down. Get down there and get us independence, right?